Together stars Alison, Brie, and Dave Franco, and was directed by Michael Shanks. I was lucky enough to see this at South by Southwest, and very quickly before I get into the film, I just have to shout out the PR at South by Southwest because it was truly very impressive and added to the entire experience. For example, posted all around the surrounding area of Austin in the city on the kind of poles and things like that, there was a poster that featured some people that looked like normal people, regular people. I just assumed they were Austin locals, and that's just what it was. And during the movie, that poster came up and people in the audience gasped. They were like, oh my gosh. And it's just so funny because I was walking past those posters thinking nothing of it, thinking it was just a normal Austin poster, when in reality it was a very genius marketing and PR tactic. And also, at the very beginning, I have to find footage of this because I'm in there somewhere because I was on the floor and like they did this thing where this woman came up on stage. I didn't know anything about this film. Let me preface, I didn't know anything about this film other than Alison, Brie, and Dave Franco, and I saw that picture of them. I hadn't read the synopsis, I didn't know the genre, I knew absolutely nothing about it. So imagine my surprise when this woman comes up onto stage and she like she had like a bell or something like that, like maybe it was a cowbell even, and she like ringed it and then like cranked her head to the side. And then this woman, two women actually, that were right in front of me on these rows, start screaming at the top of their lungs and contorting their bodies and crawling up to the stage to do this like big amalgamation. It was amazing, and they were all like contortionists and dancers, and it was just, I mean, visually stunning, of course, but it was truly shocking and scary, and I felt so violated and duped in the best way possible, because I remember thinking to myself before the movie was starting, I was like, maybe I'll start a conversation with that woman, ask her what she does. Little did I know she's an audience plant to terrify me. I need to find the footage of my reaction somewhere because it was truly actually horrifying and terrifying, and I was like, what is happening? But that's so impressive and so good and just such a riotous good time. Like, bring back PR stunts like this. Come on. They're doing it correctly. Let's go. This is how I like to see movies being promoted. And luckily, it set the scene very well for me. It gave me more of an idea of the tone that we were about to dive into, and I'm almost glad for that, because I would have been absolutely clueless as to the genre or the vibe or tone of this film had people not started contorting and screaming around me right before it began. Firstly, this movie had no business being as funny as it was. This was a genuinely hilarious movie, and it makes a lot of sense because Michael Shanks came up beforehand, and it was like he was doing a stand-up comedy routine. He was so funny. So seeing that humor translate made a lot of sense to me, and also Alison Brie and Dave Franco are obviously connoisseurs of the comedy genre, but I actually found their performances to be impressive and surprising in a way. They were that funny, and kind of, especially Dave Franco in particular, I just thought he was reaching new heights in his like career. I don't know that I've ever seen him be so funny, at least for my personal taste. He was just absolutely hilarious. Both of them were hysterical. The timing, the banter, the back and forth, they are both so attuned to not only each other, but the script and just the rhythm and pace that is necessary for this kind of comedy, that it was just executed perfectly. I don't want to say too much about this film, but I am going to read the synopsis. So the synopsis reads, after moving to the countryside, a supernatural encounter starts to transform a couple's love, their lives, and their flesh. That's a pretty good synopsis. That is pretty much what happens. This is a neon film, which I am obsessed with neon films. They've done it yet again, once again, absolute home run, absolute banger. Another one, thank you. Come on, neon, the best, absolutely. Like, they are just some of the best in the industry. Let's be real. Look at the material. But this movie was hilarious, and it was also horrifying, and it was also very poignant, and had a lot to say, and was also scary. It was such a kind of strange amalgamation of so many things that usually can't and shouldn't really work together, and yet it really did in this film. I was so absorbed into this film. I was so enthralled by this film. I was so entertained by this film. And I also found it very resonant. I walked away really admiring the conceit of it and the concept overall. This joins the ranks of things like Get Out or Haunting of Hill House, these more recent horror endeavors that really take horror as a vehicle to explore a much more potent and poignant social issue or psychological theme or trauma in general, relationships, things like that. Really using the tropes and the things that we're so used to seeing in horror to explore and really dig into some psychological elements that are equally as disturbing, but also very intriguing and interesting. And I love that it allows for people to explore these themes with a totally new perspective. And I just love whenever horror is used as a vehicle and essentially a metaphor to discuss certain psychological elements. It really is my particular niche. I don't know what to tell you. It just really, it's my bread and butter. It really worked for me. And it's such a unique genre, and there's such a unique way to actually attack these themes through it. But this is kind of exploration of relationships, of codependency, of complacency in relationships, of the kind of messiness and confusing nature of relationships, especially long-term relationships, how there is so much love, but there's also so much kind of resentment that can build up. There's so many complicated things that come with being with a person for that long, that you know them so well that you might lose your own individuality and identity in that relationship, that you might not kind of have lives that are separate from each other. And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it kind of beautiful? Is it kind of toxic? It really is a very deep dive into the conflicting and contradictory elements of romance and relationship through this horror lens. There is some very visceral and disturbing imagery that can and does come from this film that will stick with you, that was truly something else. But again, the tone is so interesting because it balances all the horror with comedy so brilliantly and so effortlessly and so quickly. I am thinking of several scenes where something truly disturbing and horrifying happens, and then immediately it's like the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life. So it just really allows for you to kind of ride the wave of that. And I think that people who are not really a fan of horror or have a difficult time dealing with horror will be able to digest this a lot better because of those elements that kind of leave it buoyant and kind of give it this levity and give it this texture that really shades it in fully instead of just being totally horror, totally scary, totally jump scares, all that type of stuff, like non-stop. It really does have a good variety of things to sink your teeth into. And I think this is while it is a very bizarre film and is a very kind of disturbing film, especially for general audience goers and viewers, I do think that this is going to be a crowd pleaser because there's so much to like about this film. From the performances, to the direction, to the concept, the comedy, the drama, the romance, the horror. There's just kind of something for everyone in this film. And I really think that this will be something that a lot of people love. I loved it. I really loved it. It's one of my favorites from the festival. I was shocked. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I found it to be just absolutely a blast to watch, but also something that really made me think and really kind of affected me and got my wheels turning in a lot of different ways. I was just kind of contemplating the themes that were explored and the messages and the ideas in a way that I don't often do in movies that are this fun. There's obviously great chemistry between Alison and Dave. They've obviously done things together before, which I believe I have seen some of the things where they played couples before, but this is just different. They have chemistry not in the sense that like they're so sexy together, there's a lot of love there. They have chemistry in the like pejorative sense, in the sense that they run the gamut of literally every single emotion and experience that you can have with a significant other. Good, bad, and ugly. And all of them are extremely convincing and extremely realistic in a way that almost made me uncomfortable at points because I was just like, oh, I don't know, this is too real. This is coming from somewhere. They really have somewhere to pull from. But I think them being a married couple in real life gives this film an edge in that way because it adds so much depth and so much realism. It does feel very lived in. It does feel very realistic. There are moments that are super awkward and super weird. And there are moments, I don't want to discount the moments where it is romantic or loving or sexy, and that also they're able to deliver on that front as well. But I was much more impressed by them being able to deliver on all these fronts where it was like the relationship really wasn't working and they were really kind of like weird with each other and there was a weird element and they were kind of not on the same page. Those moments of tension or awkwardness or misunderstanding, disconnect felt really impactful to me and felt really, really realistic to me. I really thought that they kind of did the whole life cycle of a relationship, of love, of sexuality, of romance so well and so convincingly. It just was like, again, their chemistry in every sense of the word, not just the positive, was off the charts. It was unbelievable. It also does question whether some of the things that culturally we have been made to aspire to are actually of value, if they're actually something that we want, if they're actually something that we need, or if in fact it's something that is really not good and really toxic and really unhealthy. And again, you just really don't get this amount of depth from such a fun horror film in a lot of instances. This also almost marks its own new genre of like relationship horror or, romance horror. It really kind of stands alone, but I could see a lot of things kind of being inspired by this. Not that there haven't been things like that before, but it does feel new and innovative in that way, and I could see a lot of similar concepts and themes being sprung as a result of this film and inspired by this film. It also is, surprisingly, so much body horror recently. I mean, of course, The Substance had its day. Like, we are really in a body horror era, it feels and seems. And this certainly, does cross into that territory of body horror, which I really wasn't expecting, but it makes a lot of sense within the context of the film and for the plot and the actual, meaning and the things that are being discussed. It's actually very clever. It's very clever. And the ending scene is very clever. And it's played for comedy, but it's really, I can't even get into it. It's really just very, very smart. Very smart. Very smart, very funny, very entertaining, very unique. Just absolutely a blast that has some real substance and some real staying power. I would absolutely recommend this. This was one of my favorite things that I saw, and I loved pretty much everything about it.